And hello, everyone. Welcome to the another APT and Cybersecurity LinkedIn Live event. I am your host, Aaron Stillwell, joined by my co-host, Alex Mavro. Today, we're explaining one of the most critical and timely topics shaping the future of cybersecurity today, Explainable AI or XAI. This is a live event, so we encourage everyone tuning in to place your questions in the LinkedIn comments section throughout the session. We'll be selecting a few of them for a dedicated Q&A segment at the end. As AI systems become increasingly integrated into our defense, detection, and decision-making process, the question is no longer, can we trust AI, but can we explain it? To help us unpack both the foundational and conceptual dimensions of XAI, we're honored to welcome Rishard Baderoon, Chief Technology Officer at SecurePath Consulting. Rishard is a recognized leader with over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity, OT/ICS security, and AI ethics. Rishard recently launched the XAI Roadmap, outlining 12 deep dive topics that bridge AI transparency, ethics, and infrastructure protection, a roadmap many in the industry are paying close attention to. Over the next hour, we'll cover the foundations and ethical pillars of explainable AI, real-world applications in cybersecurity and critical infrastructure, and Rishard's forward-looking vision of how XAI will shape the next generation of secure, trustworthy, and AI systems. Rishard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Alexander.
So the first question, Rishard, is this is kind of a two-part, I guess. What first drew you to the field of explainable AI? And was there any specific moment, perhaps in OT or critical infrastructure, where the lack of transparency in AI systems made you realize the need for explainability?
That's a very good question. I think it's also a very tough question because there were so many, um, there was a lot of things that was attached to understanding that and the reason behind me trying to unpack, especially from a cybersecurity side. I think it really dawned on me when I was reading an article from Mike Holcomb, and it was very interesting that uh, one of the things that he mentioned was that the most critical part of the OT infrastructure is what happens when there's a disaster. And it struck me how, you know, the industrial 4.0 is actually playing a huge role in shaping how AI is actually evolving at such a rapid pace. And it got me thinking about um, how are these decisions being made in those critical environments, especially if you're looking at a oil and gas plant that is quite critical, or even worse, a nuclear plant.
Oh,
And here in South Africa, we've got a nuclear plant which isn't far from me. And it got me thinking, what happens if they start putting AI robotics in there and making decisions? And then how is the decisions being made um, with regards to overheating the plant? Because now if the AI robotics is making a decision and it's a false positive, then we're gonna have a meltdown in South Africa.
yeah.
Um, it's just kind of like made me think about this. So it then started my journey to see, the rapid change and adoption of AI in the environment and how these decisions are being made. So anyway, I just started. Um, I just went down this rabbit hole, and it just made me start thinking, how are we going to actually utilize this because the adoption is so drastic, and um, and everybody's just using it, but nobody's thinking about the consequences of that.
Yes.
So I then embarked on that to see how we can actually start educating ourselves, um, and the software vendors who's developing the software and making this decision. So it, that was the culmination of um, how this journey started with me.
Great. Just an idea for those in our audience who are newer to the concept. Can you break down what explainable AI actually means? And also, how does it differ from interpretability? And why are those differences crucial for building trust in cybersecurity tools powered by AI?
So it's an excellent question. To simplify it, there's two parts to the XAI. One is the way you interpret and understand the model's mechanics behind it. How does the model actually work from the inside out? And how does that decision tree follow that logic? And that's its inherent understandability of the interpreting of that foundation to that. The second part to it is the explainable AI, which is understanding the model's decision, uh, how it requires you to understand how the wiring is actually working. Instead of what it does is actually provides a post hoc justification for a specific outcome. So for this specific input, what did you give me? That is the output to that. So from the difference in crucial in cybersecurity is we often use highly complex models like deep neural networks because they incredibly accurate at detecting novel threats. So this interpretation of that is needing to understand the techniques to explain the decisions in that, and the way you understand this kind of connection in the network is what they use SHAP to say the packet was flagged as malicious because 70% of the decision was due to the unusual packet size, and 20% is the destination's IP's reputation, and 10% is to the timing. So the explanation is what builds that trust. It turns the inscrutable alert into an actual intelligence for a SOC analyst.
Yep.
It's quite a technical thing, um, but it's quite easy to understand in terms of how the decisions are being made. And one of the topics that I've been writing about is what they find SOC fatigue. There's so much alerts. They are using quite a few. The attackers are using the AI to do that. So the decisions are being made quite rapidly, and we need to understand how those decisions are being made at milliseconds. So, to simplify that example, I would say that in the interpretability would be you're looking at a blender and you're looking at a food processor, to
Yeah.
simplify for everybody to understand that. So the interpretability is that you see the blades, you understand the blades are spinning, and you understand how exactly that works. So that is you interpreting that. From an explainability side of it, is that you're looking at it from a food processor perspective. You've got the lid, you see the blades. So now if you're making hummus, you understand that 50% is chickpeas, 30% is tahini, 20% is lemon juice. So you understand now the exact mechanics, how it's going to taste at the end of that. So
Yes.
this is what the explainability is supposed to give you, that power of the of the food processor. But we demand the recipe to that. So it's quite a it's quite an interesting topic. This
So, in your October 2025 LinkedIn post launching the XAI roadmap, you mentioned the importance of moving beyond the black box. From a foundational standpoint, what are the key components of an effective XAI framework? And how can organizations start applying these principles early in their AI adoption journey?
um, now that is a very key thing for most organizations to understand what that framework is going to look like, or those three pillars So we need to understand what the explainability stack is. You've got three elements to that, which is a technical explainability. This is the tooling and the techniques, which is like SHAP, SHAP, LIME, and the counterfactuals that generate the explanations themselves. Um, the second part to it is the process of that explainability. This is that human flow of how this explanation is presented to the analyst or to the operator. Um, what are they supposed to do with it? This includes creating standard operating procedures for when to trust, override, or investigate an AI's decision. And thirdly, we're looking at the governance around this explainability. So, this is an audit trail, the ability to log explanations, the key decisions to demonstrate the compliance, perform the root cause analysis after an incident, ensure the ethical standards are met. So, to simplify this in an example, where you're building a transparent company expense system, for example, the technical side of it is the software that scans a receipt, for example.
Yes.
It categorizes them with lunch with a client, for example. When you're looking at the process of that, the rule says that any expense over $500 must be explained with a receipt and a business justification, right? And lastly, the monthly audit or the governance around it is the monthly audit log that shows who approved what and why, ensuring no policy is violated from it.
Mhm.
So, to start that early in that process would be the explainability by design and the approach to that. So, I would advise that you don't bolt this on afterwards. Um, when you're doing a next AI project, is to start looking at adding one question, for example, would be how will we explain the model's decision to the end user and the auditor? This this question, forces you to consider tooling, user interfaces, and compliance from day one. So, so what I'm trying to say there is that you need to start baking this kind of process, these pillars into any of your AI solutions that you are either building in-house or you're getting other third parties to come in there. So that's one of the biggest things that I foresee in the future is questioning a lot of these applications that's being developed.
Do you think they're just developing too fast without thought behind the back end and what needs to be done? Obviously.
I think the evolution of this is phenomenal. We are going to achieve a lot in it. Um, but I think we all have kids, right? The kids wants to get on. Dad, I want to buy this motorcycle, or I want to buy this skateboard, and they want to start doing all these um, radical maneuvers from day one.
Of course.
And you're getting them the headgear and everything, but you're actually asking them what's going to happen if you're going to go down this hill with this bicycle. Do you have sufficient braking power? Are you
Yeah.
thinking about all of these things? And they go, but Dad, it's
It's
kind of that
fun. I
situation.
don't care. It's fun.
Yeah, yes.
So you've worked extensively at the intersection of Industry 4.0 and IT OT convergence. What specific risks do black box AI models pose in these environments? And how do explainability techniques, like you mentioned, the SHAP and LIME, help practitioners regain confidence in what their AI systems are doing?
This is a very, um, very fantastic question because um, this comes back to lives. Um, I think in the IT world, all of us knew that the disasters that should happen in any financial institution is
Yeah,
you've got some disaster recovery.
indeed.
There's no human, there's no one, no human life that is at huge risk. Um, Maybe it's debatable that, but coming from that environment, working in that environment, none of your team is at risk from their lives perspective. When it comes to the OT side of it, it changes dramatically because the model in OT is is based on number one is safety,
Yep.
and without safety, um, there's catastrophic failure, um, and that is where those three. So there's three existential risks that comes in the OT side of things when you're coming and doing the conversions, and this is what we're seeing, and I think this has got a direct impact on everybody in the world um, because of the industrial fall. And I was just funny enough, I was just watching I just divert from this for a second. I was just watching a clip in China that was using industrial 4 at a gas station. So they were using a robot that the car pulled up. The robot opened up the gas lid. It then you stipulated how much gas you wanted to put in there, how much money. It then filled the car up for you, and then when you were done, it closed the lid. It did everything. So there was no human intervention there.
I wonder.
Now, can you imagine?
I wonder if it could get you a cup of.
Pardon?
Could it get you a cup of coffee too?
Yes, I'm sure it will.
Could get you an egg
Um,
sandwich for breakfast.
yeah, I think we're moving into that direction.
Oh, definitely
So it
moving.
got me, yeah. So it got me thinking, especially when it comes to the petrochemical environment. Can you
Yep.
imagine um, something happens from that perspective? And I thought it was so pertinent to what it is that I would like to talk about is that the failure, catastrophic failure to it is that this can lead to physical breakdown, safety incidences, environmental disasters, and we can apply this, especially to the petrochemical environments, things that we live off today. We don't have gas. These are the companies that is manufacturing this this products for us to use. You've got the battery industry. You've got the oil and gas, petrochemical. Um, you have the water and sanitation, and for
Yep.
me that is quite something to think about. So we're so dependent on these products today, but we really think about what the effects of that would be when you start looking at um, controlling systems that's controlling those environments, especially in the manufacturing environment. So you've got an unexplained command that leads to a physical breakdown, for example, the safety incidents or the environmental disaster to that.
Yep.
Then you've got the extended downtime to that, which if the AI causes a fault, the OT engineers can't fix that. Um, because they don't understand what the diagnosis is and how long that diagnosis is going to take
Yep.
without any kind of explanation to that. And then you've got the subtle degradation, which is, an AI might optimize a process in a way that slowly degrades equipment or it creates a hidden vulnerability. So, applying the SHAP and the LIME are the bridge backbone for this confidence. So, if an AI halts a robotic assembly line, the SHAP can show the OT engineer the primary reason why a motor temperature reading that was, for example, three standard deviations above normal correlated to a specific torque setting, for example. This is in the manufacturing. My background comes out of the manufacturing, working for a huge motor industry, and understand that purpose. So you're now creating a vehicle that is not talked to the correct specifications. So the customer receives that. So there's so much risk that comes with that kind of thing. So the line faults that comes with it in the motor industry. So, the risks of the black box in critical infrastructure, um, is for me, that got me really going about how are we actually going to explain this? How are we going to make these decisions? Because ultimately, that final decision should be made by a human. And I think, coming back to your question, Aaron, about the evolution of this and how fast the adoption is that we're pretty much giving um, the keys over to a system that is designed and developed, and we also giving them the permission to make this decision on our behalf. And I think that is, for me, more catastrophic, because um, we're just going to go into anarchy, because then, all the latest movies that's being made now on AI, and all the robots and the sci-fi that's coming out, it's not far from that. I mean, so uh, when you're looking at a black box AI controlling a smart building's temperature, for example, just to give you an example, in the critical infrastructure, it'll turn the AC in the server room maybe up by a few degrees to try
Yeah.
to save energy. You know, now, without an explanation, the IT team doesn't know why these servers are overheating. Where XAI comes in, the system would say the AC is shut down because the external temperature dropped to 15 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, and the energy prices spiked. So the team would then know it was an energy saving move, not a failure, and could choose to override it.
Got it.
So there's many examples that we can use. We can use it in the financial systems. For example, if you wanting to apply for a loan, why did the loan get rejected? We just say rejected, but there's no explanation behind the rejection of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can I just have you seen, I guess, vendors in the OT space, your PLCs, the DCSs, are they starting to integrate this AI technology within these products yet? Or is it, I typically, from what I've seen, a lot of these vendors are, they're typically, I guess the change within the OT environments is much farther back than what you see, is much, it takes a lot longer than IT. Have you seen AI technologies starting to get integrated with these solutions to streamline some of the processes? And I guess, is it working? And then you had the process control engineers, which you talked about, them not understanding this AI technology and what's happening. I could see that as being a problem.
It is. I think, the development of the Industrial 4.0 is definitely um, taking the world to a such a productive state, especially if you're looking at the motor manufacturing environments, and the way, especially China, was really building cars within minutes. Um, um, to answer the question from an OT side of it, a lot of those PLC systems are so old. If you breathe over them, they'll stop.
Yeah, I know.
So old
I
they
know.
are.
Yeah, I know.
And I think they probably too scared to touch that. But I think in the newer industrial age, when you're looking at the Middle East, for example, that's building data centers that is underwater just to keep it cool. The Chinese is building these underwater cooling systems,
Yeah.
data centers, and the way the EU is building a blue road that's developed. So yes, I think new versus old. The new is definitely utilizing AI to be able to develop faster, production faster. But I think where one has to be concerned about is the automotive industry, who's now
Yeah.
developing vehicles that is making decisions,
Yes.
and the risk that that poses is, would you wanting to get into a vehicle that, and I think there's a funny clip of a guy that asks Siri, while they're traveling on a mountain, and so he says you need to take a right turn, and the right turn is down, a cliff that's like 10,000 feet down, and
Yeah.
he says, I ain't listening to you. So, at the
It's
end of
funny.
it
I would
is,
know people that actually probably do that.
yes, I think the blind belief of the way we just expect um, that these manufacturers that we're trusting is actually they're going to protect us in that. And I don't see that happening because the question is that I'm asking is that how are you explaining decisions are being made in this?
Yeah.
And, you know, I could be wrong in saying that today, tomorrow, somebody else could be doing it. But I don't see that happening within the cybersecurity arena. Um, all the vendors that is making these products and making these decisions. I think in the IT side, when you're having an EDR solution or SOC or SIM, or if you have any kind of solution that is an AV. If you go back 20, 30 years ago, the antivirus used to do the job, but we never actually asked the question is, how are they actually making the decisions? How are they coming to that? And we always believed that the signatures that they were writing was happening on the fly, so you're writing a signature that is going to combat that kind of attack. And then, it's blocking that kind of attack. Today, it I don't think they can develop a signature fast enough than the attack, because every time the attack changes the goalpost, so they can't build signatures fast enough. So now you're needing to develop software that is going to counter this. And what I'm seeing is, uh, in particular, is that a lot of these systems are failing. Because the attacks are too fast. So it's quite a difficult answer. I think we need to constantly ask the question. Coming back to being parents, we constantly have to ask the kids, why did you do this? Where are you going? So we're still gonna have to be parenting this thing.
I agree on that, and I know what you mean. Even for the vulnerabilities, for example, I mean not only vulnerabilities but also for you mentioned earlier for antivirus. Right now, we are not using antivirus at all. We are using EDR
Yeah.
or NDR. EDR, of course, for finding those actions over there, but through your system, of course, and NDR, for example, for those that are used on the network side, which I agree over there. If we are speaking about vulnerabilities, then we have different type of tools. For example, from the Tenable, we have Nessus, of course, for part of the
Yeah.
infrastructure where we can do hardening. By the way, now it's coming with something new, Tenable, but not only Tenable, also Qualys is coming with something more AI functions, let's say like that, because it's using the part of the web development where you can check the code, check
Yeah.
how it is done, the part of the software development, or even that AI, how it was constructed, if it's a malicious code and so on, all those kind of things. Besides that, we are thinking if this AI will gonna help us or will gonna destroy us. Some of us will say, okay, the threat actors will use as a weapon, for example, in order to destroy us. It's not because it's not us. We as a person is the companies or organizations or whatever is there. This is what I have seen from the threat actors that are using the AI. Of course, AI
Yes.
can be used in a good way. This is another
Yes.
thing. And I'm not saying for me, for example, because I am a person of GRC. And from time to time, I'm using, of course, for part of the compliance thing in order to not check all those articles about the standards, about the NIST, about all those kind of things. I'm going through the AI, and the AI is doing the scrapping, because this is what it's doing, web scrapping. It's checking that info, but there is one thing that people doesn't check. For example, I ask the AI if the info is accurate. That's one of the questions. From
Yeah.
where you took it, from which link and article. And I would like to
Yeah.
see also the paragraph from where you took it, because I want to be legitimate, that info, not to be
Yes.
from somewhere else on the internet, and then to see that it's not true. I mean, this is how it works, compliance in the end. All the auditors is doing that. But yeah,
Yes.
it's another story over there, because you have mentioned about that. And of course, are we sure that we can trust AI? That's one of the questions. And the second question, is it mature? We had another live webinar with CISO from Delta Airlines. Aaron knows
Yeah.
what I'm saying, where she was asking, is it mature? No. I think we need maybe 5 or even 7 years to get there, and
Yes.
then we will see, but we don't know when. And of course, maybe with autonomous it's kind of different. We
Yeah. Yeah.
have some others, we are afraid about that, because you have mentioned about OT. If an autonomous robot is using the part of OT, we are putting questions. We can rely on him or not.
Yeah, that's the truth. But what I totally agree with you, and I know that we're digressing a bit. But what I would like to what I've been doing of late is that so the EDRs and the XDRs and the NDRs are proving um, to not deliver as much as what they prove they can, right?
Yeah,
And
correct.
Um, and this is where the challenges are for organizations that is reliant on that. And where that shift has come for me was that I started working with a vendor based out in Massachusetts. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to. I'll just
You,
redact the
you,
name.
you don't have to if you don't want to.
You don't have to,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no, I'm happy to talk about it because I've been working quite closely with a
Don't
company
mention
called
the name of the vendor or
yeah. So
wherever you
okay,
have worked.
so
Your past
so
experience,
so
you can mention like that.
so the best experience where I'm seeing what they are doing,
Hmm.
and they are working on the kernel level. So NDRs, XDRs are working on the application layer, which is
Yeah,
just sitting above the kernel. And what he's doing is phenomenal because, as a data scientist, where they're using Gen AI and making those decisions
yeah,
is 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 proving that what he's doing is the right thing. Why? Because it's actually stopping ransomware in its tracks from day
yeah.
one.
You could actually,
Um,
if you're promoting, I thought it was going to be more of the opposite. But yeah, if you could name the company if you want to promote it, more than happy to.
um, Yeah, so we're working with a company called Cyber Crucible, Dennis Underwood. You know, Dennis, I'm, I don't think I'm really promoting the product per se, but what I love what Dennis is actually doing is that he focusing on the real uh, problem, and the problem is that you can't change anything that is having a shift on the goalpost every millisecond. But if you're working on the kernel layer, you know, this is where XAI is coming in. It's a simple model. I can trust you or I don't trust you. There's nothing in between. If this doesn't look right, I stop you in your tracks. Um, what it also does is
Hmm.
it doesn't stop any kind of processes or applications. It just stops that one particular task. So if you're finding an attackers coming in using their ransomware code, and they're trying to encrypt that drive, and there's this behavioral anomalies that's coming about. um, for them is it's a simple question. If a thief is trying to come into the door, whether he's wearing a suit or not. If he's got a weapon in his hand, you stop him right there, right?
Yeah.
It's about that. So I think what I really like about working with him is that it's doing the deep dive into the kernel level, and this is what I'm seeing that he's doing. And also, what he's also now doing is the apart from the product launches that he's doing, I'm kind of looking at it more from an holistic perspective as to where the world is going. Is that we're seeing AI firewalls, and
Yeah.
AI firewalls is also sitting on top of that layer in the kernel, and this is what he's doing. So he's doing something right. I'm
Do you trust
advocating
them,
this.
by the way?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Dennis
They
is
have a
Dennis.
multiple functionalities, capabilities, and so on. But I don't know how accurate is the information. That's the only thing over there.
Oh, you mean from look? I mean, when you start going into the deep dives in that, I think I'm happy to introduce you to Dennis. But Dennis is ex NSA,
Hmm.
and Dennis was the one that uh, I know I'm promoting Dennis here, but from his background, coming from a very authoritative background,
I see.
come working for the MI6, work and actually developed dark trace, believe it or
Oh,
not.
nice.
Um,
Oh, yeah, we know that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we know. We know. I
yeah,
mean, even I work with that too.
yeah. So dark trace was Dennis was instrumental in working on that. You can do up his own bio on that.
Hmm.
And what he's done is I've had many time conversations and calls with Dennis, um, and talking about XAI is most definitely one of the things that he's baking into his products and how
I
those
see.
decisions are. I think as we're going through, Aaron, all the stuff that we're needing to talk about, which is the ethics. So I think there's a lot of those questions will be answered from where we're going. Alexander, you working on the GRC side. I
Hmm.
think this is where the big focus is going to be on organizations that is going to start questioning this.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
I
agree.
see the rise of AI ethics officers, AI compliance and governance officers, um, and I think it's going to be a complete game changer in that.
We already met a person into AI governance. We are talking about here about DERS.
Oh,
Aaron
yeah.
knows.
Oh, yeah.
He knows.
That was a great meeting.
Yeah, he knows a lot of things on the AI side. He is also
Yeah,
doing different things like he's an instructor at the ISACA and so on.
yeah,
And yeah, he knows a lot of things over there. And I maybe we can have I don't know a live webinar together with him,
yeah, yeah.
also with you,
Yeah, that would be a
because
great. That would be a great
Absolutely.
meeting.
yeah, will be a
That'll be
great
fantastic.
great one, I think, over there. Besides that, do you think zero trust can be a good approach into AI?
Yes. When you're looking at it from an OT side of it, yes.
I see.
I mean, I work with a few. When you're looking at the NIST framework, um, that is looking at how the application of the Purdue model is applied, but when
Hmm.
you're looking at the framework from the NIST 2.0, um, where you find that you're doing the discovery,
Yeah.
the protection of it. So where I'm seeing a lot of the benefits would be, which is very similar to the XAI, not in so many ways, but I think from a protect within the NIST framework
Hmm.
is you need to protect something. So how are you going to do that is to do microsegmentation,
Yeah.
and that is what the zero trust is going to do. So the
Yeah.
microsegmentation is literally to say that I'm going to allow Aaron to cross the road to visit Alexander and
Hmm.
no one else. And he's only allowed to walk on that specific line, and that's it. So, I'm working in that. I'm doing quite a lot of from a business side of it, speaking to power utilities, um, also speaking to the petrochemical where you've got companies that are, um, how are they going to segregate that network? How are you going to do that from an IT to OT convergence? How are
Yeah.
you going to segregate this? So that's another discussion, because there's vendors that is claiming a lot of that, but you're having to actually do a deeper dive into microsegmentation, which is probably where XAI is going to sit in. Simple. He's going to question you, yes, no, policy, apply the policy, and that's it.
But
Simple.
into robotics, if we are talking, I know Arduino has for a long time ago this approach. I mean, it's telling him, okay, you go over that line, you move the, for example, that box from A to B, or from A to Z, for example,
Yeah.
and then he's telling him, please don't go over outside of the building or in another room and those kind of things. But that's for a long time ago, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, I mean that has been applicable in that way. I think the introduction of the sophistication of Industrial 4, where you're now allowing, and I think where the big question is coming in is in the medical industry.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
this is quite critical, because you can apply it and we can debate about it in the manufacturing side of it, but when it comes to human life in the medical industry, is the application of XI, as far as I know, they are already applying that. But the big question around that is hallucination. So if the robot or the program is now finding a tolerance, and you didn't build that tolerance in to actually explain that a diagnosis is supposed to be created with variations to that, and if those variations hasn't been thought out clear enough,
Yeah,
it could be misdiagnosed, and
I
then
see.
you could die. I mean, that is the ultimate um, result of uh, an a non-X AI or an AI product, especially in the medical industry, um, that is utilizing this.
But
Um,
robotics, it is used for quite some years, 2 or 3.
yeah, I mean
I mean, robotics
it's
in
as old as IT.
medical thing.
Yeah, it is. But I think um, the decisions now that they are utilizing is for you to not have a doctor in there. You
Oh,
just need an
okay.
operator in there. So if you pushing a patient in that is completely automated, and they're doing a blood test and a blood analysis on you, and from there they're doing the operations in there. So you may have an oncologist or some kind of doctor that is sitting in the theater, um, you kind of allowing that machinery to actually start thinking for you, that is giving you that diagnosis. I don't know if you remember, a couple of years ago there was a movie. um, I just, for the life of me, can't remember that name.
With Matt Damon, there is a one with Matt Damon that I know on a planet where he's bringing his friend over there who had cancer in order to not die.
Yeah, that's one of them. And there was
Yeah,
another one with a lady that used to get into a pod, and the machine used a laser to cut her because she had a problem in her
Oh, you're
stomach.
talking about the
Stitched her up.
alien
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Um,
Yeah.
anyway,
yeah.
yeah, so it's based on that. I mean, the
I
ethics around it. Like,
I can recommend over the good movie with AI, and that's one of the best. The Creator. Believe me,
creator.
it's the Creator. Yeah, the Creator with a kid
Oh
who
yeah.
who
Yeah.
could control everything in terms of AI.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Yes, yes. Um, so just coming back to that, I watched that. I thought it was fantastic. Um, there's a TV series called, I think it's called Murder: The End of the World, um, and that was, for me, that blew my mind, because it's pretty much like an article, and the I don't want to kind of spoil that. Whoever wants to watch it is, I think it's fantastic the way they've done that. Um, it's where the culmination of where XAI should be fitting in it. So years ago, when we watched a movie called The Article or something to that effect, um, it's pretty much where that is going. So eventually, the article starts taking over, and it's making decisions, and it starts hallucinating, and it's going through this whole rabbit hole, and eventually everybody's held hostage. So now you're having to shut the whole damn thing down. So yeah, it's quite funny.
Yeah.
So, Rishard, I'd have one more question before we're going to hand it over to
Sure.
Alex. I know we're at 2:45 now, but let's go to the ethics, right? So,
Yeah.
in your ethical AI for infrastructure roadmap topic, you highlight fairness, bias detection, and public assurance. How do these ethical considerations, how do they intersect with explainability, and how do you see them as non-negotiable for secure and trustworthy AI systems?
Fantastic. I think that is probably where I've spent quite a lot of time is the ethics around it. I think explainability should be an enabler in the ethical AI. You cannot have one without the other one. Um, you cannot prove fairness without being able to explain that your model's decisions are not based on protected attributes like race or creed or postal codes or country, etc. You cannot detect bias unless you can interrogate the model to see if it's unfairly penalizing a legitimate subgroup to that. For example, an XAI technique might reveal that a cybersecurity model is flagging a connection from a specific geolocation, not because of a malicious activity, but because of a bias in the training data. You know, it's coming from South Africa, for example, or whichever of the countries. We at war now, so now we're becoming biased to say that, well, traffic that is coming from China, it could be legitimate traffic, but now it's flagging that. So you cannot provide public assurance for an AI system managing critical infrastructure without being able to transparently justify um, its actions, its regulators, and the public to that. So it's a non-negotiable because trust is a license to operate. So we have to rely on the public relies on the regulators, and they cannot trust your AI blindly. It will not be deployed. So explainable AI should be it should provide us the explainability and the evidence around how the decision is made. So, as an example, so if we look at if somebody is doing a job application, for example, it consistently rejects female candidates for the tech roles, right? We know that we live in a dominated male environment for tech. So without the XAI, you only see the outcome; it's rejected, and you don't know that it's detected that it's being biased, for example. Now, when you're looking at the XAI, there's reasoning. It's penalizing. The reasoning is it's penalizing um, the applicants who's attended a women's college, for example, or listed women in coding clubs. So the XAI exposes the unfair bias, allowing you to fix it and to prove your process is fair. I mean, we can use many examples for that. The applicability when it comes to the OT side of it from a cybersecurity. I mean, it's quite critical that you don't want a system to make a decision and say to you that a reactor is overheating based on the previous example. I mean, it's catastrophic. The disaster is environmentally um, catastrophic as well. So the loss of life, the environment. So um, to end of that, I think the what I wanted to say is that we cannot allow AI to make decisions. Yes, we are allowing XAI to make the decision, but ultimately the final decision should be what we call intrinsic AI, intrinsic XAI, which is ultimately the final decision should be made by humans. Yeah, that's
All right, Alex, you're up.
Okay, thank you. So, in your article, Explainable AI in Cybersecurity Building Trust and Precision in Automated Defense, you emphasize transparency and accountability. How does XAI enhance real world threat detection and incident response in your work at Secure Path Consulting?
so very good question, Alex. Um, I think what we're dealing with is two things that is quite critical. One is the speed, and one is accuracy. So if you're looking at speed, you're looking at how a decision is being made, where data is being exfiltrated.
Yeah,
Now, um, the XAI enhanced system provides you, for example, um, a gig of data that maybe a CAD file is being, moved to a personal folder. The user has never done this before, and the data volume is 10 times more than for example, the 90-day average. So
yeah,
this explanation immediately tells the analyst that the what to prioritize, what to ignore, and what action to take. So when you're looking at the priority of that, we're looking at what specific user, the data type it is. So you're now profiling that person. It's now looking at what do you ignore. It wasn't a false positive from a new software update. When you're looking at what action to take, we're looking at the immediate access revocation and the investigation to that. So when we start looking at what we call the mean time to respond, the MTTRs, that dropped over 70% for these types of alerts. So the accountability is clear. We have an auditable a record of why we took that drastic action,
mhm,
um, and protecting the companies legally from it. So I think speed and accuracy is there will always be that compromise. How fast you want it and how accurate you want it. So um, you're always going to have that play off on that.
okay, thank you. You have recently spoken at the Centech Africa Tech Week and
Yeah.
led cybersecurity leadership training. From a conceptual standpoint, how is XAI changing the way organizations integrate AI into OT and X systems? And how do leaders balance innovation with security in these complex, high stakes environments?
A big question. I think there's a paradigm shift from looking at automation and augmentation. So
Mhm.
we're no longer trying to create AI that is replaces the human operator. We're creating AI that empowers them, right? So the balance in innovation and security is where we need to start baking this from the beginning. You need to adopt this from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, you need to pilot this parachutes approach where you need to ensure that the stuff is baked in from the beginning. So, in practice, um, I think a decision that supports an application, which is not the full autonomy of it, but uses the AI to flag the anomalies, a PLC, for example, the readings, explain the anomalies, but leave the final shutdown command to a human, as I mentioned earlier. So a simple example would be a fully serviced driving car, no steering wheel, black box risk. You're just a passenger. A car driver assist features is an XAI in action. The car might beep and say, "I'm applying the brakes," because the car ahead has suddenly stopped. Right?
Yeah,
AI explains its reasoning, but the human driver remains in the loop, ready to take over. So the balance is innovation in assistance with security is the human oversight. So there has been that huge shift in it. the discussion on the AI is how we taking AI, and how are we going to utilize AI in benefiting, the advancements of humanity. But I think what we're trying to do is forget about that we also need the human part to it to make a final decision, because AI is only built from us, right? Without us, AI is nothing.
Yeah, indeed.
Um, yeah.
Indeed, true on that. I might have. I think we still have time for another question, Aaron.
Yeah, we're at 2:55, so I think we're good to go.
Okay. A constant challenge in AI is managing the trade-off between performance and explainability, especially in anomaly detection models. Based on your experience, what conceptual strategies can help organizations maintain both precision and interpretability? Sorry.
Interpretability, very good question. I mean, the you know the I think the key is to stop seeing a binary choice.
Yeah.
I think, the binary choice is a strategic layer problem. So uh, the approach, the recommended strategy would be to have a two-tiered AI system. One is high precision black box detection, and what I mean by that is that you use complex, accurate models, deep learning anomalies, as a broad net, and then it scans everything with high sensitivity to that.
I see.
The second is a high explainability, which is a white box triage, um, where tier one, which is the high precision, uh, flags a potential threat. You don't act on it directly. Instead, you feed that specific event into a second inherently interpretable model, like a decision tree or logistic regression, um, trained on that same data. The second model isn't just a job, it's to be more accurate, but to provide a human understandable, explainable explanation for why this first model was flagged. All right. So having both of this is the high precision, the complex model with transparent, and actionable output, of a simple one. So you're looking at performance versus explainability trade-offs.
Yeah.
you know, your simple example is, as I mentioned, a medical, a diagnosis, high performance, black box, deep learning analyzes the MRI, for example, 99% accurate at spotting tumors, but can't say why, you know. So high explainability, which is a lower performance, is now a simpler rule-based system, is only 90% accurate, but can
Yeah.
say, I see a tumor because there's a 2 centimeter mass with irregular borders, for example. Um, so the best strategy is to use the 99% accurate model to find the potential tumors, then use its findings to train the simpler model to highlight why it thinks it's a tumor. Um, the doctor gets both accuracy and a clear explanation. So ultimately,
But the
you
doctor is
still
the last
have
one to
that's
approve.
100%. Yeah,
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 it's funny, man. I know we're near the end of time, but one of my neighbors works
yeah,
at NIH, and he talked to me about that's what they're doing. So they're taking massive amounts of MRI using AI modeling to be able
yeah,
to, I guess you could say, augment or help the radiologist make their decision. But in the end, uh, everybody's going to want the radiologist to make that last decision for it,
100%.
not
Yeah,
just trust the AI to go, okay, yeah, this is a tumor,
yeah,
this is definitely happening, but have a radiologist do it. But if I think my thoughts are if it could help them speed up the process, because as if you're going through this process and they could take a week or something to get the results back, and if it could do it faster and help streamline the radiologist job, I see a benefit.
correct. Yes,
But I see what you're talking
100%.
about. If people can't explain exactly what it's doing, how do you know if it's correct?
Yeah. So we're gonna constantly have to check that,
Yeah.
stop and check. You're gonna be the dad and mom
You got to be the
and
dad and mom.
grandparents.
Yeah, you got to be the dad and the mom.
Like
Sometimes
parents.
it's not the best to be the dad and the mom, but so you got to be the dad and the mom. It's funny, when I was younger, you look at your dad and your mom and think, I'm not going to be my dad or my mom. I'm not going to be my dad. And then all of a sudden you get older and you're like, I'm my dad. I turned into my dad. But you know what? It's a good thing. I love my pops.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
So,
Yeah.
all right, we're at 3:00. Rishard, thank you so much. If you want to stay on, I'm just going to stop the recording from here. But if you stay on, we can just talk for a second if you want. But everyone.